When you were running around Vegas, you had Elvis. I think Tom Jones was around there as well.
We met at the Riviera one night, and I commented on his cufflinks, and he went, "Here, you have these."
Wow.
Oh, yes. Well, Aquaman, one of my favorite superheroes.
Oh, you mean the Snoop Dogg party?
Yeah, Snoop Dogg, yeah.
There's necessarily a reality above just the material reality.
Home protection.
Bow and arrow. I don't know.
Our nation is incredibly strong, but it can easily be brought down from within.
I think we all have a calling to a higher purpose.
Welcome to the very first ever live audience Conversations at the Mansion. Yeah. All right. We are super pumped to have everyone here. I'm super pumped about today's guest. Just this past week at CPAC, he and his father came in top 3 for the most likely Republican nominee in the straw poll for 2024. We're excited about that. He's also a guy that bridges the gap across the aisle. In fact, his favorite Democrat is Mitt Romney. He's really a peacemaker. He's great. He's the #1 New York Times bestselling author for his book, Triggered. He runs the most prestigious luxury commercial real estate brand in the world. He's volunteering his time today to help Turning Point USA. He's been called the meme general in the meme wars. And finally, he's been called the rock star of the conservative movement. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a proud Conversations welcome to my friend and your friend, Donald Trump Jr. Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Not bad.
Yeah, good group.
I've never been called a peacemaker before.
Maybe a little bit. What's a little sarcasm between friends?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, man, we're awesomely excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'll tell you what. So I was in Vegas last week, or as I tell the church people in Nevada.
Yeah.
And I was at Trump Hotel trying to get into the front door. There's a group of 100 people, almost entirely African Americans, and half of them were wearing red MAGA hats.
Yeah.
Now, the press tells me that you guys are a bunch of racists. What is the true state of the Trump brand, the Trump organization, and just the energy behind the Trump name right now?
Well, listen, I think it goes without saying. I mean, you see sort of the enthusiasm now is actually probably far greater even than it was going into the election, right? And he still outperformed any sitting president in history. And I think it's because people realize that they've been lied to. Yes. And or the truth has been kept from them, right? We see sort of the way social media works. We see the way the mainstream media works. And Joe Biden's going to be a moderate. Nothing moderate. Joe Biden, he's not going to end fracking. No, he did it on day 1. But they were sure to make sure that everyone would at least be skeptical. Okay, no, maybe he's going to be a moderate. He hasn't been moderate on anything. I'm not sure he's the one pulling the strings, but it doesn't matter. Whoever is a radical. But they know that kind of policy doesn't work with the American people. They know that, so they shield the American people from it. And now they're saying, wait a second, had I known this, I wouldn't have. Had I known that, but it was all out there. I mean, I wrote a book about it last summer, right? It was all there. They just did whatever they could to suppress it. I always say, if it was the Don Jr. laptop from hell, I have a feeling right? I have a feeling you all would have heard about it ad nauseum.
Yes.
Day in and day out. Any one of those, what is it, like 50 different degenerate things individually would have been disqualifying. But we heard from the intelligence community, who was just protecting and working for the other side, that it was Russian disinformation. I mean, they said that with a straight face. Notice that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, they didn't deny it, because if someone photoshopped a picture of me smoking crack, I'd say I didn't do it. Here, I'll drug test me, right? Mm-hmm. I'm an animated guy, and every time I give a speech, the headline is Don Jr.'s on cocaine. I go, no, I don't know. We saw what happened we saw what happened in 2015, right? If you're low energy in my family, you get thrown off the stage like Jeb would. What? That was the end of Jeb Bush, right there. It was just that was it. Low energy,
Please,
right?
please clap. Please clap.
Yeah. I know what happens in my house if you're low energy. You don't eat. So no one's ever accused me of being low energy, but somehow the notion that I may be something is disqualifying. But actual evidence of those things, and again, it doesn't matter whether it's financial ties to organized crime in Russia, oligarchs with ties to human trafficking and prostitution rings, it just each one, $1 billion from China for no real investment experience, because I can assure you the Chinese probably do diligence, and they're not giving money to drug addicts, right? It's just that's not their business model, right? Unless they're trying to buy you, of course.
Of course.
Which we all know what happened, right? So the reality is those places, they're getting a great return on their investment into the Bidens. The media is still silent, and so it's been different. But when we go out there, people get it. To your point, they try to say you're a racist, you're this, you're that, and yet Donald Trump outperformed in those demographics versus any Republican in history.
Definitely.
And that's with the mainstream media targeting it, saying it. If I watch CNN for 5 minutes, I don't want to go to Christmas dinner, right? They're terrible people. These are, even with that level of bias and aggression, people still got it because they saw it.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing it yourselves. I mean, the patronizing sort of way they're talking to people. You see what's going on when you go to the hardware store, or the grocery store, or the gas pump. People say if I go. I'm a big Second Amendment guy, so if I go shooting on the weekends, I shoot a box of 9mm into a thing of plywood as a backstop. They say I'm flexing my rich boy muscles. Because we understand that these things are, you trade like a piece of plywood for a car these days.
Yes.
But you saved 16 cents in aggregate at your 4th of July barbecue. 16 cents. I go, that's wonderful, unless you got into the car and you had to drive about 7.5 yards. Because that's when you burned up that savings. But they try to sell it to you as though that's real.
Yeah.
As opposed to this. If I criticize it, they'll fact check me and I'll get deplatformed and cut down for disputing their facts, even though they clearly will never talk about the nuance. So, long story short, I think people are getting it now.
Yes.
They're finally getting it. Their eyes have been opened. The other side always overplays their hand so badly, right? They don't just take the inch you give them, and Republicans have given far too much over the last few decades. They've just sort of, they've turned the other cheek, and I understand that sort of, rooted in, our biblical ideology.
Yes.
It just hasn't worked.
That's right. Yeah.
And so we do have to change the tactics.
Yeah, and you mentioned we don't know who's pulling the strings. You spent an entire chapter in your newest book talking about Joe's dementia or probable dementia.
Yeah.
He's got 2 aneurysms, 1988. It's unknown what his mental state is.
Well, and you saw in when my father was president, Donald Trump, there's something wrong. Whatever he did, right? It didn't matter. If he mispronounced the most obscure name of some country slightly, it was a disaster. He's got, he's in the later stages of dementia and Alzheimer's combined. He's every time. So my father's like, okay, I'll take a cognitive test. Ronnie Jackson, congressman here now, who was
Montreal,
Obama's doctor.
yeah.
He's an admiral in the Navy. He's like, I'll administer it and we'll go, unbiased. He goes, he aced it. He gave the press conference on it, and they were saying, but, just anything to try to create that thing. The bottom line, you either ace it or you don't. You know what I mean?
He was 30 for 30.
He goes a perfect score. It wasn't like he passed. It was a perfect score. Strangely, Joe Biden won't take that same test. No, we've had private doctors who have no government affiliations to make sure it won't leak. But you see, this stuff's not that hard. To get up and speak about policy that you've been talking about for 50 years, for half a century. I know his policies better than he does. And I don't even believe in them, right? You can't walk up a flight of stairs. We have a hard time keeping up with Joe. Sure you do, Jen. Saki, we have a hard time keeping up with him. Maybe keeping up with what the hell he's saying, maybe. That I will give you. Maybe that's what she meant. But surely no one's having a hard time keeping up with Joe physically or mentally. I always say, Joe, just turn the teleprompter around. Please, man, just do us a favor. We will read whatever they wrote. We will read it so much better than you, Joe. You know, but just do that. You'll save all the confusion, all the hassle, the memes. Just make it easy for us. But he keeps trying. I'll give him that.
Yeah, yeah. So who do you think's pulling the strings? It's not Kamala, I don't think.
I don't think so, because you already see the rift there. You know, both camps seems to be trying to kill each other because, again, it's not like they're delivering wins, right? They created a humanitarian crisis at the border. Now, they have the gall to go out and say, that was Donald Trump. He created, it's like there was no problem for like 3 years. I say 3 years because it took them a little while to get it under control, and then they did. Yeah. Now you have all-time high human trafficking, and you have drug trafficking, and when I criticized that and said, hey, with the draconian lockdowns from blue states, you know, what's that going to do to people with addiction problems and those sorts of things? That's nonsense. There's nothing there. You know, study the other day. Fentanyl deaths at all-time high. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Well, look at Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo just destroyed your home state.
Yeah, well, Governor Cuomo, you know, again, he can, you know, look at what he's been accused of. It's like nothing happened. I mean, it's literally, he sent grandmothers, and I remember, you know, if I went outside for 2 seconds at my country house, you know, 2,000 yards away from the nearest human being, I was killing someone's grandmother because I wasn't wearing a mask outside. But Andrew Cuomo actively deciding not to use the hospital ship Mercy that my father got into like New York Harbor the day after it was asked for, but sending them back into nursing homes, knowing two things, right? What did we know about COVID early on? If you were elderly, i.e. and or with pre-existing conditions, it was a real problem. So if you were elderly, it was a problem, and most of that had to do with also being in pre-existing conditions. When they talk about, you know, any of the mortality rates, just look at what happened statistically if you took out those with either severe diabetes or obesity. Another thing, we cannot talk about that as a pandemic in this country. It kills as much, you know, on a yearly basis as any of these things, but you can't talk about it because that would be either fat shaming or, you know, one of the issues, you become a racist, a misogynist, that's not the answer for everything, and yet it is for the left. If they can't argue with reason and logic, you're a racist, whatever it may be. And the problem is those things actually, and those problems still actually exist in this country. They just aren't the cause of and solution for all of our problems. They do a major disservice to those who are actually afflicted, because now when you hear it these days, I mean, you roll your eyes and move on. Because you know there's probably a 99.9% chance it's nonsense.
Exactly. So I mentioned the straw poll at CPAC last week. You and your dad won that thing. It was pretty crazy to see the numbers. And I think your dad saw a 98% approval rating among conservatives, which is shocking. I think there's a lot of Congress people kicking themselves.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? It'd be so easy. It'd be so easy to embrace some of those policies and to actually fight for the things that you claim to believe in, that all of these guys in rooms like this tell their constituency they believe in, but then they go to Washington, D.C., and then now there's nuance. It's just different. I want to be invited to the cool person Christmas party, so I will sell out our beliefs. It's the Mitt Romney model, right? Yeah. I mean, again, Utah is what? Second most conservative state in the union, but he's actively promoted by the Democrats because they know he doesn't have the will. He doesn't have the resolve to stand up to them. So they know we're not going to attack this guy. We're going to promote him. We're going to elevate him. That is conservatism, right? Look at what they're doing to George Bush over the last few weeks. George Bush, who we remember now, like, listen, say what you want, but during the 8 years of his presidency, according to the media, he was not just the dumbest man in politics, he was the dumbest man ever. Period. Like, this is a true story, right? I mean, every day was a joke about his intelligence, about this. Guess what? He's significantly smarter to me than what we currently have, but that you can't talk about. But they did that forever. But then, a couple weeks ago, they asked him a question. Do you think there's room for a pro-choice, anti-gun, Marxist Republican? Oh, yeah, I think he could definitely perform incredibly well. George Bush is a genius. He's brilliant. Yeah. That's what they do. Yeah. They find the useful idiots and they build them up because they know they'll get them to do what they want when they need them, right? They know, and it's for these guys. If you're a senator, oh, it's great. They don't attack you. You don't have to deal with anything. You sit back, you do your thing. It's a wonderful existence,
Yeah.
as opposed to being attacked. And so my logic has been, I think Donald Trump opened the door to show you that it can be done. Okay, you can take on that establishment.
That's right. That's right.
But the but to that, though, is you can't just have one guy going out by himself taking all the arrows.
Yeah.
They can't cancel 150 million Americans. You talked about the straw poll. I guess I did pretty well, which is always awkward. At the Trump family dinner, you don't necessarily want to be, hey, Dad, I'm doing okay in there, even if you're in it. I'm like, we just don't bring that up. It's a wonderful day today. It's beautiful outside. Let's not talk about that.
Well,
the reality is, if I'm doing well in there, it's only because they see that, hey, he'll actually get after it. He doesn't care if they attack him.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be. I got into politics. I've always been a conservative, right? I've always been pretty, but, as a New York City real estate developer, you didn't talk about those things because it was just bad for business. But we can't think that way. So I did the opposite of what most, which is, they're beaten into submission and they do what the other side wants or they hide there. I just said, hey, it is what it is. This is the game we're playing now. I got to be out there. And, for me to be doing well just shows you, though, we need a better bench.
Yeah.
Right? We can't just have these sort of, the rhino types or the weak guys that, they seem like they're wonderful people, but they're never going to actually go to bat for what we believe in because literally so much of our existence is at threat. And they don't just stop. Look 2 weeks. In the last 2 weeks, right? You had the FBI putting out information on how to spy on and sell out your families, right? Because they're looking for extremists. Now, they have no interest in looking for extremists that burned down most of the inner cities of America over the last 18 months. But if Grandma took a selfie somewhere within 1,500 miles of the Capitol on January 6th, we're making sure we're knocking down her door. So there's a double standard. So you have the FBI looking to do that. You have the White House now acknowledging that they're working with Facebook to decide what is and isn't misinformation. Now, I have a feeling they're not going after Adam Schiff, who spent 3 years saying that he's seen the evidence of Russia collusion. They're not going to do that. Or CNN or MSDNC or one of these people, pushing all of those lies, whether it was Russia, whether it was Don Jr. committed treason, whether it was Don Jr. perjured himself, whether it was Ukraine. It never ends, right? We're on iteration 15 of that. None of those people will be held accountable, right? Jen Psaki herself put out that it was Russian disinformation that was Hunter Biden's laptop. Well, it turns out it wasn't. Is she going to now be removed from those social media platforms, or do they just get to decide which ones they don't like? Which narrative is not really convenient for us? Because those are the people that are going to be blocked. You're talking about, we're witnessing what, I've experienced in my life as someone whose, mother escaped from communism. I spent my summers growing up in communist Czechoslovakia because my grandparents wanted me to experience that so that I would recognize how blessed we are here in this country. So all these millennials who are really good at regurgitating what some Marxist professor of theirs have told, but frankly they've never lived life, they don't know anything. But they will preach the great virtues of communism to those who've actually lived it and escaped it and whatever. That's probably what started getting me into conservatism as a young age, probably before I necessarily put together sort of the political implications of that. But having seen it with my own eyes, having waded in the breadlines myself, my grandparents did me a huge favor by doing that because I learned early, and I sort of figured it out through actually learning, not just the way they try to teach our children today, by telling them what is and not teaching them about thought and critical thinking.
Yes. So I want to do a quick flash poll, one that would not make your dinner uncomfortable. Okay, so flash poll by sign of applause. Who here thinks that someone named Donald Trump will win a third consecutive presidential election in 2024? Yeah? Any one of you.
Anyone.
It's neutral.
Perfect, neutral.
No
Okay,
problems,
good.
no problems. Okay. So I want to ask you, we got a lot of business guys in the audience, a lot of real estate guys in the audience. You run the most prestigious commercial real estate empire in the world. You got golf clubs in Ireland and Dublin and Scotland, and you've got the Trump International Hotel, which is just a gem of a redevelopment project. You got obviously Mar-a-Lago. You got all these great assets. Which is your favorite?
Ooh. Wow. Well, listen, I'm an outdoors guy, right? My friends always joke, I'm the Fifth Avenue redneck, right? So, like, you know, I do my work during the week, and on the weekends I go up to my cabin in the Catskills, and, you know, so I'm an outdoors kind of guy. So, you know, the most beautiful piece of land, I mean, some of the waterfront stuff in Scotland and Ireland, the golf courses are great, but I'm actually not really a golfer. I'm more of an outdoorsman. So, never got into it, never loved it, so I just took up other things. But we have a vineyard in Charlottesville, in Virginia, that is just spectacular. Yeah. It was one of the most just incredible pieces of land that there is, and so that to me is the most beautiful. Although again, the 3 miles of oceanfront in Aberdeen on the North Sea, and you know, Scotland's pretty incredible. Turnberry, obviously, the history of that there, also Scotland. I mean, we have some incredible assets, but those kind of, you know, nature-based, you know, land assets are more my thing.
Certainly, certainly. Okay, so we like to do something fun here. We like to always play a little bit of a game. And this game is called Would You Rather? Would you rather? Okay.
Kimberly's still here? Okay.
Oh, she's not. She's out of the house.
Am I clear?
We're cutting all the phone lines.
You won't tell her if this goes sideways, right?
Okay. And you can take the Would You Rather in any context. It's a speed round, so just kind of quick fire responses. We're going to warm up with 3 or 4 of them before we get into the game. So, Would you rather? You got Trump casinos in your background. Think about roulette. Would you rather go all in financially on red and black, play it safe? Or would you rather go all in on green, on roulette?
Well, listen, I still play the numbers, right? I mean, I'm a risk taker, but you know, I'm a believer in statistics.
Yes. Okay. Would you rather dress like Don Draper from Mad Men or dress like John Dutton from Yellowstone?
Dutton.
Good choice. Good job. Ford or Ferrari? Look at those. Look at those kicks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are insane. Ford or Ferrari?
Well. Listen, I could take the Ferrari, sell it, and get like 3 Fords, 4 Fords. So you're going with the Ferrari just because it's a value proposition.
Good choice. Okay. Another last softball, then they get more difficult. Would you rather California or Texas?
Texas.
Okay.
That's not difficult.
Okay. Now they're a little more difficult. We're going to have some AV input, so you can look at the pictures on this. Again, you're going to take this whatever context you want to. This Would you rather? Would you rather Betty White or Rue McClanahan?
Betty White.
Good choice. Okay. A little more difficult. Would you rather go hunting with Dick Cheney or go fishing with Liz Cheney?
I would rather go hunting with Dick Cheney.
Wow. You're going to put your life on the line.
It's certainly worth it, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about risk again. Okay, your life's on the line. You desperately need a surgery. Would you rather have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez perform an open heart surgery on you untrained, or would you rather have the deceased former dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, perform brain surgery? This is a question about competency and trust.
Definitely Kim Jong-il.
Yes. The deceased Kim Jong-il.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
yes. Clearly. Okay. Now we talked about Don being the meme master, the meme general in the memes wars. So we're gonna pull in some of your Instagram posts here.
Oh God.
Okay. We just ripped them off. So would you rather take the Pfizer vaccine, or would you rather have this as your book cover with Bill Cosby on the cover? Your next book.
I think, listen, we got to go with the meme. You can't be a general in the meme wars and not hold true, right?
That's true. Okay. They're getting a little more difficult here. Would you rather go all in financially on a limbo contest with Tony Fauci? Let everyone read the meme right here. They're afraid to laugh.
Yeah,
They're afraid to laugh. They're on tape.
It's okay. I know.
It's okay.
This is a good God-fearing crowd, right? These are good people, and you're exposing them to this stuff. I mean, this is my alter ego.
The joke here is that Tony Fauci is about 4'2". That's the joke. So, all in limbo contest with Tony Fauci, or your very next book. You had Kimberly do your last audiobook, which is fantastic. Very next book. Jen Psaki, assisted by Gilbert Godfrey, has to narrate your next audiobook.
Oh, Gilbert.
Yeah, good choice.
Hey, a friend from The Apprentice. He won't bite you too badly.
Okay, last question for all the marbles. This is the one that's going to get us in trouble. Okay, we're not in trouble yet. Okay.
Really? I usually never know. I usually have to call some friends and be like, how bad was that? I just did a little, you missed this one because it was pretty good, but I just posted before we went in here. So apparently, the Texas delegation that is going to Washington, D.C. to fight for apparently women's voting rights, because I was not aware, and I'm surprised it's not bigger news, that women weren't allowed to vote in the United States. I mean, I sort of figured we solved that in the 1920s, but maybe I'm wrong, right? But I don't know. I'm new to politics, so I'm still figuring this out. But apparently, 3 of them came down with COVID-19. This is the maskless private plane. So I don't know, but whoever said God doesn't have a sense of humor is just, I wish them well, but like, come on, like this is some funny stuff, okay? I don't care what anyone says, and no matter how badly they cancel me.
So on the final one, I want you to give us your answer, but then I want you to tell everyone the story behind it, because this is an insane story. Would you rather, again, you pick the context, imagine your context. Would you rather Joy Behar or blackface Joy Behar?
Ooh. I'm gonna get
They're afraid to laugh.
I'm gonna go Joy Behar on this
Really?
one because I'm not allowed to select. If I even
Blackface is clearly hotter.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if anyone's ever said that about Joy Behar, but in either context or however she identifies at that moment. So
She said it was like she was an African princess or something like that, right?
So it was it was fun. No, this was a good one because it was the last time when I wrote my original book, Triggered. You're doing your book tour thing, and it was my first time, and what do you do? So I got invited on to View. They were like, hey, do you want to talk about it? I was like, okay. Like, I can hold my own. I'm a big boy. They are going to be vicious. They are going to be, terrible. But, if they're inviting me on the show, at least, I'll have a chance to plug my book. I did 3 segments on the show. So that's basically the entire show. It was, 45 minutes of the show. It was their 5,000th episode. And, going into, they just started off at this attack. And suppose that, the conservatives on the show, they went just as bad as the other ones, if not more so. So I had a couple good ones for them. I can't even talk about it now because it's not even worth revisiting it. And I said, before that morning, I was like, you know what? I got to have sort of an exit strategy in case this thing just devolves into what it ultimately devolved into. I was like, I'm good on my feet, but let's have some information. So I just looked up like the dumbest things ever said on The View. There was a lot. There was a lot.
And this is the 5,000th episode, too.
5,000th episode, so it's a big deal. They're doing all these things in cake. I mean, Meghan McCain was on. She was literally had Clay Aiken as like a support animal there, like crying to him between sets. It was really weird. Like the whole thing was. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg. She lost her mind in between during the commercial breaks because like I was able to bring like 10 people that were friends. So I was like, let's find some rowdy guys, some guys out of like Louisiana, like just like my rowdiest of friends. But 10 people of like 150. So it wasn't like it was this was definitely not a hometown crowd anyway. But so when I started then firing back, like they're going nuts. And then everyone in the audience is like, well, I hate him, but he's not wrong. So like, because, the first one was like, they started talking about things, do you regret this? And they were attacking. So finally I go, well, we've all done things like we probably regret. For example, Whoopi. I mean, you defended Roman Polanski, who literally raped and sodomized, young children, and you've been, and so she goes nuts, right? And they cut to commercial break, and then someone in the audience goes, I didn't know that. Whoopi, why would you do that? And I quote, this is not an effing MAGA rally. They had lost their whole crowd because, like, when you bring actual facts, they're not used to dealing in fact. Then I called out Joy Behar for the blackface about, if we're going to talk about things we regret, let's play. But that's the difference, and sort of to what we were talking about earlier, like people who are actually willing to fight. Most people, they go on The View, and they just take the beating because they got to come back on the next time they want to sell a book or the next time they're trying to hawk something. I couldn't care less. I don't need, guess what? I can do that stuff on my own. I got a big enough following, it didn't matter. It was the best ratings they'd had in years, and it was funny because, like, for the following weeks, guys were coming up to me like, I saw you on The View. And what were you doing watching The View?
Yeah.
Like, poor guy. It's like I questioned his manhood. But it was pretty funny. They're like, no, I just turned because I heard about it. It was it was a total mess.
Yeah.
And it was sort of awesome, and I just had fun with it. But it was like that's when it even struck me as like, that's the difference between sort of, let's say, the Trump model and sort of what my dad was able to do with politics, and now perhaps me and everyone else. I just didn't care enough to play the game their way. We're going to play the game. Hey, frankly, I'm playing the game by their rules. They're just not used to anyone else playing by the way that they play. They're allowed to have a gotcha moment, but you can't.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think it just sort of illustrates the way we have to handle things.
Yeah. In 2017, you gave an interview to Town & Country magazine. You were quoted in there saying that you went back into business, but deal making is just boring for you now, but you really are excited by politics. And that seems to be about the time, like you're kind of the switch got flipped, and you just started, I don't know, you started going on a tear. I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, listen, it was interesting. So, we did some obviously incredibly exciting stuff in real estate over, a 20-year career prior, and then, 15 got involved in the politics because A, I believe in the stuff, and B, I was probably better at it than most. And, C, when Donald Trump entered the ring, like, he had zero chance to win anything. He was going to be out in 2 weeks. It was a publicity stunt. He was never going to win a primary. Then he was never going to win a general. So it's not like we had, a team of people that were the best. They go to where the money is and where it's going to be longest. I mean, it's a sick game. Like, we just got to call it out for what it is, right? So they weren't ever going to go for Donald Trump because he's out in 2 weeks. We're going to go with someone who's going to be in it for the long term because I can suck as much fees out of it as possible, right? That's sort of the mentality there. So I was like, okay, well, like, I'll do it. Like, I'm pretty good with a mic. I was always, I always did a lot of public speaking. I was good at it. I was talking business.
Yeah.
I can adapt. I understand, and I've always been a real conservative. Let's do it. And you sort of get a little bit of that bug. I had a bunch of the big conservatives sort of said, I had maybe the breakout speech of the 2016 Republican National Convention, and I was, and I just sort of got into it. And then, you win, and after 2 years of just nothing but fighting and this and traveling, and, I went back to my office, and you open up an Excel spreadsheet, and now not only could I just couldn't do the stuff even I used to do, right?
Yeah.
I did all our international deals and stuff like that. We gave that up. Unlike Hunter Biden, we would be held accountable if we did the right. It's different.
Yeah.
No. They were giving us problems for owning real estate abroad. We've been real estate guys for 20 years. We're supposed to divest ourselves of pieces of land. It's not so easy, right? If we owned a piece of real estate, that was disqualifying, right? Now, you can take $1 billion from the Chinese if you're a Democrat, no problem. With no experience, other than maybe a lot of crack. Like, where's the lie? Is there any misinformation here? None. That's the thing. So, but it was different. So you go back and say, hey, you can't do what you've been doing. I spent years, building up a portfolio, working sort of the international relationships that I had, and now I can't do it. So now we can't do new deals. If we'd started talking with a partner about another real estate deal, even in America, totally, you have the Washington Post or the New York Times calling them, be like, sir, you got a speeding ticket when you were 15. Are you a racist? It wasn't even fair to try to do, new deals with other partners because you're subjecting them to something that, there is literally no level of proper diligence that they could do to understand what was going to come to them. So we just say, hey, you go back and, we function more like just an asset manager. Things that we had rolled out, it's like, don't even bother with it right now. We'll get back to it in time. And luckily, we have a great company, great assets, great cash flows, everything that, so, we didn't need to sort of churn new deals to do it. And that was sort of a sacrifice we're willing to make. But then I'm sitting there at my computer and be like, A, I'm not doing the stuff that I used to do. B, if you're building a 1,000-story building, it's really exciting. It's sort of good. Now, if you're managing an asset at my stage, I was like, you get a bit of the taste of the action on the other side. You happen to be pretty good at it. I end up being sort of one of the, not, I guess, other than my father, probably the most requested sort of speaker on the Republican circuit. Yeah. And, I've either put butts in seats for fundraisers or just, perhaps more entertaining than the typical politician who gets up and same speech. And we must fight to hold the House. Please clap. True story. Yeah. It was just so it was a little bit different. So you get a little bit of the taste of that. You lost the action on the one side, you gained it on the other. And I just sort of found a niche for myself. And again, as someone who believes in this stuff, as someone who's the father of 5 young children, as someone who's experienced sort of, where we're going in terms of the Marxist track, I said, someone's got to fight, and I'm in.
Right. Yeah.
We just got to do it.
Yeah. But yeah. So a quick note that I want to get back to deal making. Our most recent guest was Secretary Ben Carson. He was polling generally number 2 with your dad number 1 through most of the primary. I think they did 11 or 12 debates together. I said, well, why did you decide to support Trump? He said, because our ideology, his policy was the best. That's what he said. Yeah. Not the winnability. His policy was the best. So that deal making. Your dad's on the stage. He's negotiating against 3 of the most evil people of the 21st century. Ali Khamenei. You've got Kim Jong-un, and you also have Vladimir Putin. That guy's the real deal. I mean, that guy's a killer, as your dad would say sometimes. What's going through his mind? What's the Trump mentality on deal making? Is it against those guys? Is it I'm fighting good side? It's good versus evil, or is it just this is a deal by deal? I just want to win the negotiation one at a time.
Well, I think there's probably a longer term play than just sort of win the negotiation. But I think he understands things for what it is. The reality, he's got an incredible gut instinct that has served him very well, both politically and in business. So he sort of knows what's going on. I mean, you could see. I mean, look at the juxtaposition. I mean, obviously, you have North Korea, right? Donald Trump, he's doing it all wrong in North Korea. And why is that? Well, I've headed up the delegation dealing with North Korea for 40 years, and what have you accomplished? Well, you've met with the other side, right? Well, no. I mean, he's doing it all wrong, but they had literally done nothing in almost half a century. Well, maybe they're the ones that have been doing it all wrong, right? When Obama goes and checks out the DMZ miles away through a pair of binoculars, he's so brave. So brave. He's a very, very tough guy, Obama. Donald Trump, come right across the border.
Yes.
It's just different. You saw with, you saw last week even, 2 weeks ago, G7, right? So Putin, you can have your pipeline. Putin, we're going to get rid of that military aid package to the Ukraine, because I was told prior, a couple months ago, frankly, that if you cancel an aid package to the Ukraine, that's an impeachable offense. Apparently, that only goes one way. But so Putin gets a pipeline, he gets billions. We get to actually keep paying the EU. Joe Biden will say the EU is the backbone of NATO. Now, we pay 70% of the budget, minor details, to protect them from the people that they're enriching with billions of dollars through a pipeline. Wonderful. Wonderful. The media used Putin's own words about Joe Biden to show that Joe Biden is not, in fact, riddled with dementia. Putin himself said he seemed really sharp. That's it. Went from Russia to see Vlad said he's really sharp, therefore he must be. No, Vlad said he's really sharp because he would much rather deal with a dolt than someone who's going to hold him accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Right? So then they say, well, in Finland or wherever it was, Trump didn't call Putin because he knows. He's a deal guy. He's a pragmatic guy. He could go out on a main stage and try to embarrass Vladimir Putin, but then something goes wrong somewhere down the line. Whether it's Syria, whether it's anywhere in the Middle East, you got to make that phone call.
Yeah.
You can embarrass the guy on a world stage, which will accomplish nothing. Okay? Because it's not like Putin gives a crap what Jake Tapper says, right, on CNN. He could care less. Yeah. So you can embarrass him on a world stage and get a win for Trump, or you play the long game. Don't embarrass him. Don't take the unnecessary cheap shot, especially because it gets you nothing. With us, it probably still wouldn't get us praise even from the media, even if you did it, so it almost doesn't matter. It's net neutral. But not calling him out means that you still have the ability to call him if something's going on. And if you're going to deal with the second largest nuclear arsenal in the world, it probably makes sense to have that line open, as opposed to having embarrassed someone on a world stage, gain nothing for yourselves, and now totally cut that off. And so there's a difference between sort of playing the media game and actually doing what's right for your country as a patriot. And so, people will never get that. You bring it up and be like, that's not, of course that's what it is. Like, he understands the negotiation because he's actually negotiated stuff before.
Well, he wrote a book about it 20 years ago, and he just executed the book that you wrote 20 years ago.
Yeah, listen, our politicians, the vast majority of them, have never done anything. They've been bureaucrats. They're good at playing that game. And I've asked some of the guys that I do know that are fighters, why doesn't that guy just step up? Why doesn't he just push? Well, because Don, he was on the city council of his little town in God knows where for 7 years, and then he became a state delegate somewhere, and someone died, and so he lucked into a seat in Congress. He just wants to stay. He's living his best life. He doesn't want to jeopardize that by actually questioning the powers that. And I was like, man, that's it. I look at Congress, I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a great job, but for that guy, it's the greatest thing in the world. He doesn't want to lose that. He has people throwing him a barbecue every once in a while. He gets to go on TV once a week and regurgitate some sound bites. It's the best he'll ever have. He's not going to jeopardize that to do what's right for you as his constituency. He's thrilled to be there. It's never getting any better. If he loses that, he's out of the big leagues. He's playing in the majors right now. He's just happy to be there. And that's true, and that's what we got to combat. We got to get rid of those guys too, because they're not helping us. With Republicans like that, we might as well have Democrats.
Yeah, that's right. I want to ask you about your book next, Liberal Privilege. But first, I need to thank our sponsors today, host committee Guy and Vanessa Cordell. Platform, great. Supporting Turning Point organization, fantastic organization. You're here as well supporting Turning Point. Big fan. Marshall and Meredith Eiler, Shannon Walker, Chris and Pamela Dollins, David and Carol Martinez, David and Sarah Alderman, and Cy Rankin and Haley Rankin. Give them a round of applause. You have about 5 minutes to finish up?
Sure.
Okay. They have me on a leash here.
Do they? Okay. Yeah. We're just, part of what I'm doing now, with the Turning Point stuff, but I also had some book events that basically were book events that I was supposed to do last fall. Obviously, the Rona took over. Things had to get canceled and stuff like that. So because I'm a man of my word, I'm actually making up the things. Most people would be like, that was so 6 months ago. That was last year. We're good. Let's just call it a day. So I'm just following through on those. So I'm all over the state, just catching up for the ones that I had to cancel.
Yeah, I started getting texts last night. Well, Don Jr.'s here in Dallas-Fort Worth. There's like 300 people here getting books signed. And then someone texted me a few minutes. He's at Nick and Sam's having dinner tonight. And
yeah, we're all over the place.
Yeah. Man. What do you mean by liberal privilege?
Well, listen, I understand that I've been blessed. Let's get that off the table pretty clearly. But I get to hear about whether it's white privilege or rich kid privilege or every other kind of privilege. The only thing we don't hear about is liberal privilege, which is sort of the notion that you can be the greatest hypocrites in the history of the world and not actually be called on it. I mean, if you look at the double standard, it's really about the double standard that exists. Between the two factions of government. When you look at politics, it's so one-sided. Again, it's the me versus the Hunter Biden, right? It's, lies on TV versus, it goes on. And so I just said, someone actually has to call this out. Like, what can it be called? And again, I get to hear about privilege day in and day out. We actually had to call it out. So it sort of worked as a great title. And again, I should now just republish the book, change the title, and say, I told you so. Because again, all of this stuff that's happening right now, again, energy, Hunter Biden, the corruption, Wuhan, all of these things, the lab leak theory, right? When was that not the most plausible argument in history? Just they didn't want to go along with Donald Trump. So we took science and we changed science, right? We can bend the rules of physics to dictate our narrative. That's not what I learned in science, but it's what they're basically showing us now. So liberal privilege sort of just defines the hypocrisy that we see today in our political system.
Okay. I need you to confirm a few rumors, and we're winding up. Heard that there's a call sign, Cobra, Cobra, Cobra.
Yes, I've heard from a few people. Yes, that's the one when Joe Biden's walking around nude. That is the call sign. It's,
Okay. Also heard a rumor. You want to be a little bit. You want to maintain some anonymity in college. You're at UPenn, and you had the guys in your. I think it was the Fiji fraternity call you something else.
Well, we had a lot of nicknames. We're not going to get into that right now.
The one I heard was Ron Rump.
I've used that. Yep, that was definitely a fun one.
Okay.
At times. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So final question, and we'll let you get out of here and hopefully get some signed books here. What do you have on your calendar for November 2024?
Well,
I had to do it. You're here.
Well, listen, like I said, one way or the other, I'm going to be out there and I'm going to be vocal. Whether it's for my father, whether it's for someone else, who knows what it evolves into. I mean, If you would have asked me 2 weeks prior to him announcing his own run, I would have been like, I'm not sure he's doing it. Like, I don't know. Let's see what happens. So, but either way, I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to be vocal.
Cool, cool, cool. Great. Don, thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for sharing with us. I think we're going to hang out for a couple more minutes here, but thanks so much for coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, the rock star of the conservative movement, Donald Trump Jr.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.